Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar. We're pleased to welcome many participants from all across the UK and beyond. Thank you for joining us this evening to launch the 10th pamphlet in our Froebelian approach series, which has been authored by Helen Descoli and Debbie Hunter. My name's Sasha Powell and I'm Chief Executive Officer of the Froebel Trust, and my job tonight is to welcome our speakers and to welcome you and to take your questions. If you have any questions tonight, please can you type them in the Q&A box, which you should be able to see on your screen as a little icon. You're welcome to say hello in the chat as well, so please type your messages in the chat. And if you can choose all panelists, or everyone, I think, everyone, your message will go to everyone. If you choose all panelists, it'll only come to Debbie and Helen and Victoria and me. So by all means, comment during the presentation, but also please remember to put your questions in the Q&A. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available on the Froebel Trust website in November. So if you know colleagues who've not been able to attend tonight, but were keen to attend, please do encourage them to have a look at the recording next month. So I'm going to quickly now introduce our speakers this evening, and then I'll hand over to them. We're delighted to have Helen Descoli and Debbie Hunter with us. They are colleagues. But Helen, who is a very experienced teacher and author, originally started working in North London in Enfield. And then she carried on working in Sussex, and all the time her work has involved connecting children with nature. Helen works with Debbie at Annan, the Froebel School, but she also works in planting projects with the Children's Forest. And she's a co-author of the Children's Forest Handbook for Parents and Educators, which is published by Hawthorne Press. And I can see that Lucy Hunter, thank you, Lucy, has posted a link to Helen's book in the chat. So if you're interested in having a look at that, the link's there for you to follow. I've known Debbie for many years. I'm delighted to have her with us too. Debbie is the co-founder of Annan, the Froebel School in Sussex, which she founded in 2001 with Mark, her husband. She began her career in Roehampton, teaching across the age ranges, and she's an experienced educator who also trained at the University of Roehampton at Froebel College, having taken the Froebel certificate there, and also the MA in early childhood, both of which have very strong Froebelian foundations. Debbie is also a joint coordinator of the Froebel Network. And if you haven't heard of the Froebel Network, Google them, you'll find them, and have a look at their wonderful website, where you can also get hold of Froebel's gifts if you're interested in buying those for your setting, for example. Both our speakers tonight are great believers in connecting with nature and enabling children to have wonderful opportunities to feel their own engagement and connections with nature and life unity. I'm going to hand over now, Debbie and Helen, to you. If you can turn on your camera, it would be lovely to see you, and turn on your microphone, thank you. And I shall turn off mine, and it's over to you for your launch of your wonderful pamphlet, Re-Engaging with Nature. Thank you.
Hello, welcome along everybody. I'm Debbie, this is Helen. We're going to first of all start off by saying a big thank you to the Froebel Trust. A very big thank you to Jane Reed for all the help that she's given us, and to everyone else who's helped us put the pamphlet together. Gosh, everyone warned us this was going to be a lot of work, and they weren't wrong. Perhaps the biggest problem was writing about something we both feel so strongly about and having so much we wanted to say. We actually started work on the pamphlet on our way back from an open day at Guildford Nursery School. We'd been to see their gardens. We'd broken down on the M25 and the rescue vehicle said it was many, many hours away. So we went for a walk in the strip of woodland. You can't do much else when you've got Helen with you, near where we were parked. And we came back and we started making a plan. Many months and many drafts later, here we are.
Okay, so I'm Helen. I recently heard that one moment of profound connection to nature before you're 7 will connect you to nature for life. So I'd like you to talk about your early connections to nature in the chat. So I invite you to post something in the chat to everybody, and I'll tell you of my personal journey with nature. So my connection stems from my childhood. I had freedom to explore nature, and I had freedom to play and run and have adventures of immersing myself in the elements. But I also dragged all my neighbourhood friends with me, so we went on our bikes into the surrounding countryside. So this freedom and the need to share it with others informs my work, and I still feel like I'm that child that has got connection to nature. So I'm not just interested in information and knowledge. I want to play with mud and feel the joy of discovery. I want to see the sunshine through the leaves and the spider's webs in the frost. How about you, Deb?
So as a child, I lived in London, where I had a small area of wildness at the bottom of the garden of the flats we lived in. With all the other children living there, we made dens, had imaginative adventures, and played out of the sight of grown-ups. I remember when I was young, rolling down hills under weeping willows at the local park and fishing for sticklebacks with a net and a jam jar in the stream. At Anna's school, nature is hugely important. Our Froebelian ethos encourages children's innate curiosity and joy in the natural world by immersing them in nature and supporting their journeys of discovery. So Helen and I want to share the importance of engaging with nature and connection to nature, which we both value so highly. So why did we want to write the pamphlet? Well, over some years, there's been a huge movement towards children engaging with nature in settings and encouraging the use of the outdoors. But we've also had a 2-year period or more of COVID restrictions and increased online learning. And families have been less able to get out and about and mix with other children and adults. During the period when we were emerging from the first lockdown, getting children out into the woods or in the garden for forest school activities or simply just to play was huge in helping them to re-engage with each other. We noticed that children felt nervous of even playing tag games because it involved touching other people. At Anna, as in many settings, outdoor activities were at the heart of what educators did to help children re-assimilate back into the early years settings or schools. So now I'm going to share my screen so that you will be able to see some extracts from the pamphlet as we speak. Now, we're not going to share the whole pamphlet. I did say we had a lot to write about. It might be the 10th, but I think it also is the biggest. And I think that's partly because there's just so many lovely pictures we found and so many lovely quotes. So we're going to show you some of the pamphlet pages, quite a lot of them, I hope. So starting with the front cover, good place to start. The pamphlet was originally entitled Engaging with Nature. And Sasha, from the Froebel Trust CEO, raised some thoughts on whether we should change the title to Re-engaging with Nature. Sasha made the point, we are never disconnected from nature because we're always part of the unity which Froebel envisaged. But our awareness of the connections may be impoverished, as a result of which we don't pay attention to or take care of each other and the planet. It's this recognition of the need to be aware of our connection with nature which led us to rename the pamphlet Re-engaging with Nature. So what are the important takeaways from the pamphlet? So something we felt really strongly about, sorry, we've gone on too many, is that everyone can engage with nature. Sometimes it can be felt that educators need qualifications to take children outside for forest school or outdoor activities. This isn't the case. Everyone can engage with nature. You only need the confidence and the willingness. Settings can engage with nature in all sorts of outdoor environments, be they rural, inner city, or even indoors. That was one of the key messages that we wanted to get across, and the other one was the issue of climate change. It's becoming ever more significant in our lives, and we think it's important to think about what we can do as educators to help children understand the issues in ways that make sense to them. Climate issues can be scary for children, and we felt it was really important that children are empowered to feel that they can make a difference. Talking about rainforest deforestation or plastics in the ocean, whilst they're important issues, I think that they can make children feel quite powerless and unable to make the difference that they want to make. So perhaps the key message of that part of the pamphlet would be a quote which I first saw posted on Twitter by Lynn McNair, thanks Lynn, which came from Froebel, which is, if we want children to flourish, to be truly empowered, we must first allow them to love the earth before we ask them to save it. And I think it's a really strong, powerful message that is really relevant to us at the moment. So the design of the pamphlet is designed not only to explain the why and the importance of engaging with nature, it also looks at the how. In each chapter, there's a section called Ideas for Inspiration. And we hope that that will help educators and parents and anyone who works with children of different ages, in different environments and in different roles, have some ideas and resources that they can use to develop their work with children using nature. The pamphlet opens with some background to Froebel and key Froebelian principles. This is common across all the pamphlets. So those of you who are new to Froebelian practice will find these really helpful in understanding some of the key principles. Froebel believed that everything in the universe is connected and that the more one is aware of this unity, the deeper the understanding of oneself, others, nature, and the wider world. As Froebelians, we're aware of our complex connection with nature, but children can understand this better through active engagement with the natural world. And it's our role to help children move to a place where they feel they want to protect their environment through a deeper re-engagement to the world around them. There's been a lot of research that's found that regular access to the outdoors is beneficial for physical and mental health and well-being. Now, I'm sure many of us already appreciate the health benefits from being outside and in the sunlight and being active, but not many of us know. Helen knew this, I didn't know this, but apparently playing in mud can also release the happiness hormone serotonin. That's why she comes back covered in mud every day. Being in nature helps us to understand our place in the world and embody the feeling of being connected to everyone and everything else. Developing a lifelong appreciation of the natural world can come from playing and learning outdoors. So for Froebel, unity and connectivity is a key principle, and following the life cycles of plants and animals can help children understand how everything is connected. Froebel talked about how as a child he learned more from the time he spent in the walled garden of his home than he did anywhere else. Learning outside stimulates all the senses, and he talked about birdsong and textures and smells, and we can outside think about how light changes and the sound of raindrops. Immersion in the elements through first-hand experiences informs our connections. First-hand experiences are key to a Froebelian ethos. The open-ended nature of being outside can give children huge autonomy in their play and little need for adult-led activity. Children can run, leap, slide and experience nature in all kinds of weather. They can crawl, they can manoeuvre or climb over obstacles. They can touch different terrains and dig and use tools. All of these experiences help them to become stronger, more agile and resilient, and willing to have a go and challenge themselves. Learning names of plants helps build this connection to nature and to places, and visiting the same place throughout the seasons is an important aspect of feeling connected and understanding the cycle of life. And children with special needs or challenging behaviour can benefit hugely from the reduced levels of stress and anxiety that they experience in the outdoor environment. So we want to stress throughout the pamphlet, yes, we're very lucky, but you don't need a wood or a dedicated forest school area to appreciate nature. Settings can use their local park, the beach, a small woodland or community area, or even bring nature into the setting. So how do we develop re-engagement with nature? I'm going to pass over to Helen, and she's going to talk you through some of the things that she's put in her pamphlet.
Children need to gain a first-hand experience in nature. They need to get muddy and play in puddles, to make dens, create seesaws, climb, clamber, balance, run in the wind and fully immerse themselves in the element. They need time and space to explore and wallow in that experience, and then they'll be able to make meaningful connections with the world. Being in nature allows children to become scientists or mathematicians, poets, artists, engineers, philosophers, explorers, designers, archaeologists, and architects of their world. Froebel said, "A little boy hardly 6 years old can tell you things about the wonderful organism and movement of a beetle which you've never noticed before." We need to follow children's lead, witnessing their excitement and sharing their joy. We need to share children's awe and wonder at the world, so that we can help them by embodying a love of nature and respect for all life in ourselves. Froebel said that children themselves are drawn to the spiritual in nature, so we need to meet that feeling and to strengthen it. One of the ways of nurturing that feeling is to share it and reflect on it together and be grateful for nature's gifts. The practice of being grateful opens our hearts, and I invite you now to share in the chat something that you are grateful for in nature. I'm grateful today. We found a mushroom world in the woods today, and I'm grateful for that. We need to visit the same place frequently and get to know it well in all seasons. This helps children connect with nature in a deeper way, where they can watch the life cycle of a bud turning into a flower, then a seed, and then fall to the ground, hoping to find a place to make another of its kind. Naming places that you visit can build a connection with nature. Like here, the root ball of a fallen tree is Tree Root Mountain, and the children dig into it, they climb on it, they explore on it, and they imagine worlds. And when we're out with the children at Anna, we often rename places. Holly Archway, Froggy Puddle, King Pine, Crocodile Log. It just helps the children know their place and engage. Help children make connections and understand that all life is connected and that all life is sacred, and that the natural world has many beneficial relationships, like bees pollinating flowers and beavers creating wetland habitats, and that humans too can have a beneficial relationship with nature. Help children overcome barriers. Some children may have barriers to reconnecting with nature and may need more help than others. And there are many reasons for this. There's lack of experience or role models, no suitable clothes, or having additional needs. We need to help them by identifying the barriers and making adjustments, such as finding funding for outdoor clothes, finding more diverse resources, making links with children's homes, and bringing nature and natural materials into the setting, and thereby slowly building up the confidence of being in the outdoors. Now, ideas for inspiration: playing games. Children love games. Hiding, sneaking, listening, chasing. All of these games can be adapted to focus on animals and insects, and there's lots of books about this kind of thing in the resource section. Get them to focus on their senses. Using focused activities really help attune children's senses of touch, taste, smell, sight and hearing. For example, like here, using colour swatches to match colours in nature, foraging for wild foods such as nettles for tea or blackberries for your pie, using blindfolds to enhance your sense of smell or touch, and simply listening to the birds. Immerse experience are also really important. They promote the feeling of being at one with nature, getting covered in mud or leaves, being cosy in a child-sized nest, or hiding in a tree, or doing a sit spot, sitting still and just being in the environment, taking in everything around you. Also use natural materials for arts and crafts. There's many such ideas, such as acorn and rowanberry necklaces, or bees from alder cones and sycamore seeds. Create stories and plays and songs and celebrations. Children only need their imagination and a little help from you and the natural resources provided by nature. Create a culture of curiosity amongst the children. Get them to investigate further or look closer rather than just answering their questions. Alternatively, go and search answers together. Or bring wildlife into the setting, and then you can create your own wild spaces. Try not mowing some of the grass or having plants which encourage pollinators, such as buddleias for butterflies or lavender for bees. You can make bug houses, bird boxes, and leave seeds on the plants for the birds. Also, we do gardening with children here. You can make gardens out of anything, pots or tyres. We use raised beds, and you can grow food and herbs to harvest. You can plant seeds with children to take home and grow or germinate at home. And it really helps if you use child-sized wheelbarrows and real tools to make the task really satisfying. The children here love running around with their wheelbarrows. You can compost your waste and help children make that connection that plants come from the earth and return to it, making nutrients for the next generation of plants. And seeds can be collected from those plants at the end of their flowering season and be replanted by them the following spring, witnessing the cycle of life. You don't always need a lot of space for gardening, just a love to explore the earth and watch seeds grow, finding worms and little creatures. Froebel said, "A child who is cared for another living thing is more easily led to care for his own life." Froebel believed that children thrived within their communities as well as their families, so helping to create a community around your setting strengthens children's sense of their place in the world. Some ways you could do this would be to celebrate the seasons together, or have community gardening days, or by asking help from grandparents or others on outings to the park or the woods. You can also create community spaces for yourselves, such as planting woodlands or tiny forests. There are so many organisations that can provide free trees, hedgings, and then settings can get involved with working in community allotments or community gardens. Over to you.
So I'm going to talk a bit about the role of the adults. One of the things that Froebel said was children and adults should go out together and strive to feel in their hearts the spirit and life of nature. Froebelian educators do facilitate and guide rather than instruct. And it's important to remember that we can learn with the children, showing joy in what they discover, and like Froebel said, learn from them. If we show indifference or disgust or disdain, children will pick up on that, and educators should strive to be keen observers of nature and children, and also work hard to develop our love of nature, knowledge of nature with the children. So Froebel also advocated for children to walk with adults outside and not be driven like a flock of sheep. And I think I'm going to read you that quote because I really like this one. I don't know if everyone's heard it before. Teachers should regularly take their classes out of doors, not driving them out like a flock of sheep or leading them as if they were a company of soldiers, but walking with them and making them more familiar with whatever nature or the season offers. And it's almost as if Froebel could foresee that one day we'd be walking children around with fluorescent jackets in rows, maybe holding a rope. And obviously there are times nowadays where we might feel the need to be in tighter control of our children if we're walking on the road or going somewhere that's perhaps we need to keep them together. But I think it's also important to remember that we need to allow children some freedom, for them to just have some space to get familiar with whatever nature or the season offers. So our other role really is, in order to fulfill that, is to be interested, to be excited, to be curious, to be observant and enthusiastic, and make connections. I remember going to visit the infant garden one day recently, and they discovered a whole load of caterpillars, and I didn't know what they were, and so we decided we would need to find out, and we learnt together how to use Google Lens and how to find out what the caterpillars were and what they might grow into. And that's really what our role is, I think. And I think this other quote is a really lovely one too. If a child is to keep alive his inborn sense of wonder, he needs the companionship of at least one adult who can share it, rediscovering with him the joy, excitement and mystery of the world we live in. And on our next slide, this is in the pamphlet but much smaller. So we've just blown up a picture of one of our Forest School diaries, and I just wanted to explain what that was. So at the end of every Forest School session, Helen or the teacher will fill in an entry into the Forest School diary for that class. It's always very beautiful. Very blessed by having an artist for a Forest School teacher. But it's just a very natural thing that they just record what they did, the games they played, the songs they sang and anything they found. And then as children move on through the nursery and into sort of perhaps reception year 1, they get their own Forest School diary, and then they can start doing their own. So this is a kind of a model. And as children get over, they continue to use the Forest School diary and they have their own. And it's just a lovely record of what they've done together as a class. So obviously one of the things that worried people is about risk and challenge. Froebel recognised the value of challenging and adventurous play. In nature, children can get cold and messy and covered in mud. And we do need appropriate risk assessments too that keep children safe. But we also need to avoid adults becoming risk averse. Risk can be talked through with the children in advance to help develop their independence. And having a go outside can lead to having a go at other areas of learning in the classroom. And trying out physically demanding tasks can help develop resilience and children's willingness to take safe risks. Freedom with guidance is a key Froebelian principle which comes into its own outside. The correct use of real tools, modelled by educators, gives an opportunity for success and pride in things achieved. And there's a lovely quote on this page: to climb a new tree is to discover a new world. We should not be so insensitive to call out, come down, you will fall. So moving on to climate action. As we mentioned earlier, there are movements to encourage learning about climate change in the curriculum in schools and settings. A new document published by the DFE in 2022 says learners need to know the truth about climate change. They must also be given the hope that they can be agents of change through hands-on activity. Almost Froebelian, really, isn't it? We want children to feel hope that they can make a positive contribution to the natural world. There's a lovely quote in a book that we've got the reference to in the back of the pamphlet called Climate Action, which is actually, strangely, was written by one of our parents, which is really nice. And it's a child, actually, who said, every single person on this earth has the power to change the world. As we want children to feel hope that they can make a positive contribution to the natural world. They can make a difference by looking after small areas and developing sustainable thinking. Settings can have a no waste policy in the garden, recycle waste through composting, upcycling, recycling. And when harvesting from nature, we need to think about not taking too much, leaving enough for the birds and the animals and regeneration. And a lovely other quote, I don't think it's actually in the pamphlet, it's one we found since, which is that gratitude is the antidote to hopelessness and the key to empowerment. So our final thoughts are that we hope that by engaging in this pamphlet, you will feel inspired to re-engage with nature with the children you live and work with, helping them to foster a healthy relationship with the natural world. Because the natural world is full of opportunities for children to understand that they're connected to everything, and it provides boundless possibilities for nurturing creative thinking, problem solving, and developing resilience. If we enable the children in our care to foster a healthy, vibrant relationship with the natural world, we give them the keys to become the future guardians of the earth. When Mark first read that, he said, "Who wrote that lovely quote?" It was Helen. The last pages of the pamphlet give you plenty of references and further reading, as well as resources and ideas to develop your practice. Obviously, Helen and I have been in this job for quite a while, but we're always happy to help support educators in any way we can. We have lots of visitors at school, and we're really happy if you want to get in touch with us to ask us any questions after you've gone away and thought about it. We'll put our details in the chat box, or you can write to the Froebel Trust. So we thought we would end with a quiet moment of reflection. This is your moment for your leaf, by the way. It would have been lovely to hold the webinar outside, and we had plans for that, but then it turned out to be October. So it would have been nice to sit quietly under a tree and listen to the birds or the sounds of the outdoors. But this time of day and year is not ideal for that. So we thought we would like to help you to engage with nature inside. So you may have with you an autumn leaf or a natural object that you can focus on. And we've got quite a few actually behind us. And part of the reason for setting up a nature table was actually a conversation I had, it was on Twitter actually, with some teachers who said, "What's a nature table?" And we went, oh my goodness. So we've just set up a nature table behind us. But if you would like to take your leaf or your natural object, I'll pass you on to Helen.
This guided meditation is inspired by the children who lay down in the woods on a beautiful autumn day, with the leaves gently falling down on and around them. They were 4 and 5 years old, and they lay there silently for 10 minutes. It was really a moving experience. So relax, take a deep breath. Imagine you are lying in a wood. The sun is shining warmly down through the leaves, creating a dappled light. There is a gentle breeze blowing through the leaves, which twirl and float down to the earth in flurries. You can hear the birds singing. You are relaxed and comfortable, and can smell the leafy earth beneath you, musty and warm. You touch the mossy roots beside you, soft and spongy. You can taste the autumn air. As you watch the leaves fall lightly to the earth, one falls onto you, and you wonder, how long would I need to lie here before I was completely covered up? Imagine you are covered in leaves. You are one with the earth, immersed, knowing you are an intrinsic part of everything, completely connected, completely still. Lie in your leafy world, cozy and warm, feeling the warmth of the sun and the blanket of leaves around you. Now, stretch out your body and shake off your leafy blanket and wake up to a whole new world, still carrying the feeling of deep connection and relaxation. And slowly arrive back to your own room, looking at your leaf.
Gosh, Helen and Debbie, thank you so much. I didn't want to come out of the woods, to be honest. Can we go back, please? I was enjoying that immensely, and I think everybody else was too. It was so relaxing. It was beautiful, and I could smell the earth, and I could feel the leaves falling on my face, and I could hear the birds tweeting and the rustle in the trees. It was lovely. What a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much indeed. I hope you won't mind if we turn to some questions that have come in through the Q&A. So thank you to everyone. The chat has been going wild while you've been talking, which is fantastic. It just shows how interesting your presentation has been. The questions really fall into two parts. Some of them are about the adults and adult roles and some of the barriers that some adults face or are created for adults, let's say. And others are about some of the barriers for children. So I'm going to start with the adults, if I may. Some are about adults' personal experiences, perhaps during their own childhood, but also during adulthood, where they may not have had an immersion in or experience, or even a positive experience of engaging with nature. How would you deal with that if you encountered colleagues who were really struggling? What would you do? How would you encourage them and support them?
I think I'd try a positive slant on what they were saying about it, and trying to get them to have a bit to kind of challenge that, really, I think. Because it's not just about them, it's about what we want to put forward in the future for children. So I think, yeah, I think we'll try.
Sorry, go on, Helen.
Yeah, go on.
Well, we have had staff who are, you know, the people who would choose to do the indoor activities and not the outdoor activities and things like that over time. And I think, yes, it's perhaps building up slowly, isn't it? Not pushing people in too fast or too much. I mean, obviously, you know, when we advertise for staff, we often say that you will be outside a lot, and so perhaps that's why people are drawn to us. So I think partly it's looking for the right people, if that's what you want them to be able to do. But if they're finding that tricky, then I think it's in little ways doing some more things inside with plants and nature, and maybe building up people's confidence to maybe get hands dirty, literally, or
yeah, maybe in the same way as you would with a child. You know, you'd kind of give them small experiences or little jobs to do that build up their confidence.
Thank you. I've got so many connected questions going through my head. I'm going to choose one because you talked about colleagues who might prefer to be indoors, and one of the questions actually is about bringing the outdoors in, really. If perhaps it's very difficult to access outdoor spaces, particularly green spaces, beaches and so on and so forth that you've talked about. You describe creating mini forests, and so how would you engage or re-engage with nature indoors rather than out excuse me, rather than outdoors?
I mean, if I did, people would expect us to say, like, using tough spots and filling your water trays with interesting natural objects and all those kinds of things. But I think one really amazing project we did was the nature gardens a few years back. It was actually inspired, well, it was Debbie, not this Debbie, another Debbie at school, who was doing the Froebel certificate, and it was part of her project. And the children it was actually sent home as an Easter project, I think. Children could make a garden out of anything they could find, and a lot of them were just like little seed trays, but other people would use boots and boxes and all sorts of things. And the children made their own sort of mini gardens in them, and that was really lovely. Or I think they had very small spaces where they made sort of gardens that were connected with the story. So you might make a little story garden, and those of us of my generation, I don't know about younger generations, used to make little sort of miniature gardens when we were younger. So it's all those sort of things. You can just maybe go, I mean, I'm sure most settings perhaps have a park or somewhere they can go to, or else adults can bring that nature to them and find bits of moss and pine cones, or even plant some grass seed, things like that, to sort of bring things in. And obviously you can plant seeds and all sorts of that, but making things out of natural objects too is just aesthetically much more pleasing and really nice.
Thank you. Excuse me. One of the other questions really is about before practitioners, teachers arrive in the setting, the classroom, the forest, wherever they may be working with children, about training and about perhaps the lack of encouragement or indeed experience for early childhood education students and teachers, early years teachers, to experience engaging in nature and learning in nature. This question was from Marjorie Ouvry. I have to ask you about your thoughts on that, about what might be done, but also I just wanted to give a heads up about a wonderful project that some colleagues who may be with us tonight, I'm not sure, Alison Moore and Marcella Towler over at University College Cork have been doing, where they're working with their students in the outdoor environment, and it's detailed on the Froebel Trust website. And I think there is a growing awareness of perhaps encouraging students to be themselves experiencing the kinds of awe and wonder that you've described, and that spiritual connection with the natural world that you've described so beautifully in your presentation and demonstrated through the meditation. But are there other tips that, do you have a wish list? If you could go to
that they encourage is a sit stop, so to have somewhere to go every single day where you can just listen to a bird song, or just be in nature in any small way, like in your garden or your balcony. Just to every day take that time to listen to nature is one of the most beneficial things that you can actually do. So that's a top tip.
Thank you. And one of the other questions which also pertains to adults, and I'm sorry I haven't got around to the children yet, so I'll make this the last one about the adults, but it connects very strongly to the children's experiences, is about how to overcome very different ideas about what constitutes risk in outdoor experiences for children. What do you do when you've got an array of opinions?
Because I remember years ago going to a training course and they put a picture up of a child in a tree and said, what does everyone think? And everyone else was saying, oh, I tend to get down. And I started thinking, I was there for someone else from our setting, and we went, well, we wouldn't. And you're thinking, gosh, you know, and so it's quite challenging actually. But you've got to build up people's confidence, I suppose, that, you know, children probably will only climb as high as they can get down from, and that if you trust children, and you have to build up that trust. So it's all very well saying, oh, we let them run on to a certain point and then they'll wait for us. You can only do that if you've built up the trust and you know that they actually will. And if you know that children will run off in the park, then you're not going to give them quite so much freedom. But it is building up that kind of trust, and maybe in little steps, and helping the people that are working together to understand that perhaps today we'll entrust them to do a particular thing that we didn't do last time, and see how that goes, and talk. But children are very good at understanding risk, and if you talk it through with them, and maybe with your staff as well at the same time, and get the children to demonstrate that they understand that, you know, there's certain things they need to do to keep themselves safe, and to keep together, then maybe that will help the staff to understand that, you know, certain things are not quite as risky as perhaps they feel they are. But it's difficult because everyone has their own view of risk and challenge, don't they? And sometimes I go out with Helen and I feel it's a bit riskier than I because the buck stops with me, maybe. but I think, yeah, it is a challenging thing, but maybe like all of these things, I think you can't confront it and say, well, this is what we do here and that's what it's going to be, because you need to take people with you on that journey.
And the children lead often, don't they, on that journey, I suppose. And I want to just, I'm conscious we've only got a minute left. I want to turn to the children and perhaps give them the last word, really. Your work with children involves children of all different ages, and many of the pictures that you've included in your pamphlets are of children who are perhaps aged between 7 and 11, for example. And some of the questions are about how can older children in the primary school years be in contexts where teachers feel enabled and empowered and willing to really give those children the same kinds of wonderful experiences that you are giving to older children, but that are often more common for younger children.
Well, the thing is, in our schools, all the same experiences, so
we're very lucky.
We're very lucky because
our children are.
Yeah, our children are very fortunate because they go out every week.
There are often, you know, there are organisations that do forest schools and things at weekends or are doing outdoor activities, but I think there's possibly more going on in primary schools than we think, actually, and I think maybe it would be good for that to be developed more. I think it would be, you know, through gardening or, you know, just in the school grounds. There are a lot of schools I know locally who've got might be tiny patches, but they've maybe got a pond or they've got a tiny growing bed or they've got something. And as we said in part of the book, it's not about having a huge space. It's just having somewhere that you can go to regularly and engage with, really. You can find worms anywhere, can't you? And snails and whatever. So you know, that's quite possible for everyone to do. But I mean, obviously our children are fortunate, but I think a lot of schools do.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of school happening in schools.
And some of the organisations listed in the pamphlet at the back, you know, the Children's Forest people and people like that, will get involved with schools too, and there's quite a lot of exciting projects going on.
Thank you. I'm sorry we've not had anywhere near enough time to answer all the brilliant questions that everyone's asked, or I'd love to hear more from you. So I'm delighted that we'll have a recording of tonight's webinar if anybody wants to listen again and to do the meditation again. So thank you for that lovely end to your presentation. Really grateful to both of you for writing this lovely pamphlet and to Jane for editing it too. Thanks to Victoria for organising tonight's webinar, and thank you to everybody who's joined us and for the fantastic chat that's been going on. I'm sure the conversation will continue, but we've slightly run over time, so at this point I'm going to say good night to everyone and thank you so much for joining us this evening. Go and run about in the garden or in the street now. Thanks a lot, everyone. Good night.
Bye.